The Central Bank of Nigeria, which commenced operations in 1958, is Nigeria's apex bank and is tasked with the primary responsibility of formulating all monetary policies alongside the monitoring and maintenance of price stability within the economy. In a bid to carry out its primary responsibility, the central bank has adopted the tool of development finance to aid the development and sustenance of a vibrant real sector. The central bank foray into the development finance dates back to 1977 with the introduction of the Agriculture Credit Guarantee Scheme. The decision of the bank at that time was aimed at strengthening the agricultural sector, as it is the building block of all vibrant economies around the world. The central bank has subsequently launched several other developmental initiatives through its Department of Development Finance targeted at all the sectors within the economy, including manufacturing, human capacity development, funding for small and medium enterprises.
In an attempt by the Central Bank of Nigeria to achieve exchange rate stability or price stability or macroeconomic stability, as the case may be, it is important that the central bank in its decision-making process ensure and sees to it that the decisions that it takes, how does it translate into the lives of the people? How does it result in the creation of employment or increase in creating employment? How does it result in improved economic and industrial development in the country? How does it help to lift the lives of our people from poverty?
Majority of risk sector businesses, activities, don't have access to financial services, particularly micro, small, and medium enterprises. They are not able to access funds to carry out their various businesses and activities. And that is our major focus. We create the enabling environment by developing policies. We, like I said, we develop schemes and programs that provide resources, financial resources, that could be accessed by these various entrepreneurs in the risk sector of the economy. We provide monitoring and evaluation to see the performance of the schemes and programs that we have in place.
Agriculture is a high-risk activity to invest in, and sourcing of loans for agricultural projects through the commercial banks and the monetary market is very difficult.
To start a modern farm, it requires a lot of money.
And you know, agricultural activities are not easy to come by. They are cumbersome and you require a lot of capital.
The critical problem is the lack of long-term funding by the local banks.
Although they will tell you that agriculture is high risk, and I keep telling them that agriculture is not riskier than any other business.
The main reason for doubt and reluctance by commercial banks in extending credits to the agriculture sector is the unpredictability of yield and return on investment. However, in one of its strongest and notable successes over the years, the Central Bank of Nigeria has supported the agriculture sector mainly by extending credit to the commercial operators and farmers through various schemes.
A good number of factories were leaving this country. They were leaving this country because they were having issues, particularly the manufacturers, because they were not having the raw material to do what they were supposed to do. They were not having a long-term fund. Long-term, I say it again, long-term fund, because most of the time, banks are able to give them short-term fund at an expensive rate.
But funding sectors of the economy is not usually the traditional role of a central bank, and this unique financial intervention known as credit finance has its origins in the involvement of the CBN in the activities of the regional marketing boards back in 1962. There has been some debate about the central bank taking on a more proactive role of managing economic policy, but this was laid to rest more recently by the CBN intervention in the Nigerian banking sector, where it went further than its traditional role in order to restore the public's confidence in the nation's banking institutions. The CBN found itself going where no financial regulator dared to go, saving agriculture through the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme, CACS.
Ordinarily, because of the vagaries or the challenges of agricultural production, we feel that there's need to support the banking industry to ensure that they prioritize agriculture as one of their major credit focus.
In addition, the scheme was put in place to also add to the transformation agenda of the president in the area of food security, ensuring that there is enough food on the table and enough to earn foreign exchange, create the necessary employment. It was also put in place to ensure that the agricultural sector plays its dominant role in the scheme of events in terms of the growth of the economy.
What we're trying to say here is that how can we as Central Bank of Nigeria begin to support the transformation agenda of the federal government of Nigeria by helping to encourage people to integrate backwards and begin to produce agricultural products like rice, which has become a major food item in Nigeria today. That's part of the thing we're talking about.
The scheme itself was established in the year 2009 to extend finance to commercial agriculture from a 200 billion naira bond raised by the Debt Management Office of the Federation. In a novel approach to the idea of credit finance this time around, the whole range of agricultural activity, including production, processing, storage and marketing, are covered with loans disbursed for a maximum interest of 9%. All administrative expenses are also borne by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The objectives of the scheme include accelerated development of the agricultural sector of the Nigerian economy by providing credit facilities to commercial agricultural enterprises at a single-digit interest rate, elevate national food security by increasing food supply and causing lower agricultural produce and product prices, thereby promoting low food inflation. The idea is to also reduce the cost of credit in agricultural production to enable farmers make use of the potentials of the sector. Other goals include to increase output, generate employment, diversify the revenue base, increase foreign exchange earnings, and provide raw materials for the industrial sector on a sustainable basis.
The banks are supposed to get their customers, appraise their loans, and then apply to the Central Bank of Nigeria for release of funds. And as soon as we get that, we try as much as possible within the next 2 weeks to make the funds available to the banks.
We don't interfere in the operation of the bank in carrying out their due diligence. All we just do is ensure that they follow our guideline, because CAS has a guideline. I have the guideline with me here, which is actually to guide the bank and the project promoter in the operation of the scheme. It spells out the objectives, spells out the interest rate, and spells out the infractions that is, and it spells out the mode of the payment, spells out the insurance aspect that is required, because we don't go into insurance, we expect the promoter and the bank to agree among themselves on insurance and everything.
The scheme is open to private commercial firms and agro-enterprises, and they can participate and borrow money under the scheme provided they satisfy the following requirements. The large-scale enterprise must be limited liability companies with asset bases of not less than 100 million naira, while medium-scale enterprises' asset bases of not less than 50 million naira. The enterprises should have a clear business plan, provide up-to-date records on the business operations, have an outgrowers program, and where appropriate, satisfy all the requirements specified by the lending or participating bank, which also is responsible for accepting applications from interested farms and beneficiaries. The scheme is under the management of the Central Bank of Nigeria through the Board of Directors and Committee of Governors. The sum of 229.282 billion naira has so far been released to the economy under CACS in respect of 304 projects through 20 banks. It is noteworthy that a high performance of accessed loans have been repaid, suggesting an increased rate in turnover for the beneficiaries. Crucial to the success of the intervention is the attention given to the value chain. This implements the chain of activities undertaken in furtherance of production of any good or service.
Tax addresses the entire agricultural value chain, from input financing to primary production to storage, processing, and markets. That is the great advantage of CAS. Coupled with the fact that we're able to identify some critical enterprises where we have a comparative advantage and where Nigeria was spending a great percentage of its our resources in importing into the country, our foreign reserve in importing, to make sure we meet the gap in our requirement for food and fiber and for raw material for the industry.
Food security is achieved not only by the planting of crops or maintenance of livestock, but also by the ability to maintain the integrity of agricultural produce and its processed variants till it reaches the end user and/or consumer. It is these individual units along the chain of production that we find the weaknesses that lead to unprofitability in commercial agriculture. When each aspect of this chain is identified and strengthened, it serves to ensure the integrity of the finished product. Thus, the central bank, through the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme, has set out to invest in the infrastructure that supports the value chain of production. We shall be taking a look at a few different agriculture sector companies that have taken part in the scheme and how this has benefited them in the areas of growth, expansion, capacity and employment.
Basically, the factory is a rice mill which we get paddy from local farmers, we process to international quality, pack and sell.
UMZA International Farms is a rice production and processing company with a new rice processing mill that produces 22,000 metric tons of parboiled rice per annum in Kano. It is a little known fact that prior to the commissioning of the mill, the prospect of rice production in Kano State had suffered with some degree of pessimism. This was mostly due to the inability to process the raw produce. However, with the expansion afforded UMZA due to support from CACS in the building of the new mill, the company can now process its own paddy and has become a titan in the production of food in the sub-region.
You see, in 2010, we start assessing the fund to the tune of 500 million. And that time we have only one line, 4 tons per hour line. That is about 24,000 metric tons per annum for the mill. When we assessed this fund 500 million at the beginning, that enabled us to get paddy, process and sell. I remember that one is at 1 digit, 7% we are paying as interest. This helped us a lot to have a good turnover. By 2 years, that is by 2012, we were able to put another line bigger than what we have before, 8 ton per hour line, double the capacity of 15, or able making it 72,000 metric ton per annum.
The company has since raised its production capacity from 22,000 metric tons to 38,000 metric tons and employed 57 permanent and 160 casual staff. Presco is a fully integrated agro-industrial establishment with oil palm plantations, a palm oil mill, a palm kernel crushing plant, and a vegetable oil refining and fractionation plant. It's the first of its kind in West Africa. The impressive nature of integrated production at the farm, including its methane-powered plant, is a jewel in the crowning achievements in the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme.
In 2009, we approached the CBN for the CACS loan. Why did we need the CACS loan? We were pursuing an aggressive expansion program, and we needed to match our plantation expansion with mill expansion to cope with the processing of the fruits that will come from the plantation. And the CACS loan provided an opportunity for a single-digit loan. And so we were able to get 2 billion naira from the CBN in 2010.
Results were immediate, and the company subsequently performed very well as it achieved impressive records in production, new acquisitions, manufacturing facilities, planted areas, as well as business efficiency.
As at 2010, when we got the facility, our total land holding was about 16,000 hectares. Today, we are a total of about 36,000 hectares. So we have added almost 20,000 hectares to our holdings. The obvious implication is that our workforce will increase. Our total workforce has increased from about 2,003 to 3,007 currently. We've added about 1,400 additional jobs because of the expansion program.
State governments have also benefited from the financial intervention of the CBN, and particularly active in this regard is the Osun State government. Wishing to take advantage of the credit financing offered by the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme, the state has set about providing access to its farmers through farming cooperatives. These cooperatives in turn apply on behalf of their members to the participating banks in order to benefit from the scheme.
We have about 150 moribund farms as at the time this scheme came up. There were moribund, were just there. As of today, we have about almost 400 of such farms spread across the state. In terms of production, the figures that we had, about 250,000 broilers output as at the time the scheme was inaugurated. As at today, we have about 4.4 million, as at even the end of July of this year. In terms of the issue of tonnage, we have about 5.2 million kg of broiler meat, valued about 1.9, that's almost 2 billion worth of broiler meat that have been produced through the support that have been engendered by the scheme.
FEG Agro also boasts of one of the largest known hatcheries under construction in the region. Through expansion made possible as a result of the scheme, FEG Agro has grown also to include a fish processing factory within the farm and has launched the canning and smoking of catfish sold locally and in the United Kingdom.
Presently, it produces 1.2 million fingerlings a month. But when it is fully complete, it will be taking away, producing 2.5 million fingerlings a month.
Biloxi Biscuits is testimony to change in the form of a wholly locally owned and thriving agricultural processing establishment. As is often the case with commercial banks, credits to agro-allied businesses come with difficulties. Therefore, the case of Biloxi being able to stand on its own without foreign funding is all the more impressive.
The history of Biloxi is a very simple one. Biloxi was founded in 1994 as a trading company. We're importing biscuits from Malaysia and Western Europe. By 2000, we were tired of importing. But of course, nobody believed that a Nigerian can make biscuit locally. By 2003, the federal government of Nigeria banned importation of biscuits. Then Biloxi had no option but to integrate backwards to start manufacturing our Biloxi cream crackers locally.
It took just one encounter with the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme to set the ball rolling for Biloxi, and this dramatically expanded their operations. One way in which the fund has guaranteed its success lies in the way it has been administered.
Before the CBN intervention, we were paying 23% on manufacturing facilities. And you can't even get anything up to 5 years. But with CBN intervention, we got 7 years, 2 years moratorium in the first instance under the agri facility. And then the one they gave to BOI was 10 years certain. And all this, you cannot change the interest rate. It remains static. And CBN made sure that banks do not charge 1 cent above the approved rate. With all that, it created stability. We could plan for the long term. We can tell you with any level of certainty that this is what we are going to do next year. This is what we are going to do the upper year. Because you know the funds are there, this is the rate, and this is what it has to be. So all the projections started making sense.
The success of Biloxi biscuits in backward integration has helped other complementing industries such as industrial cotton manufacturing, product wrapping and packaging, as well as palm produce suppliers such as Presco to look inward. These other service and product support industries now utilize nearly 90% locally derived raw materials, driving down cost and increasing affordability for the consumer. Earlier, we noted that another important consideration in the journey of the CBN CACs is the emphasis on improving the value chain. And this next CACs beneficiary is a case in point. Animal Care Service Consult Nigeria Limited, also known as Animal Care, is a rarely wholly indigenous Nigerian company established in 1979.
We're in the business of livestock farming with emphasis on poultry and also provision of comprehensive input for livestock farming.
The company straddles an entire livestock production spectrum that includes feed and scientific research and development, a good example of mastering the value chain. The farm is the first member of the International Egg Commission (IEC) from Sub-Saharan Africa and has won several awards both locally and internationally, including Central Bank of Nigeria CBN Farmer of the Year, both at state and national levels, and the National Council of Agriculture Best Farmer in the country.
We were able to establish a new feed mill in Asaba. With the scheme, we have expanded our operation in Kano and also at Ogiri here in Ogun State. Our farm capacity has grown tremendously from production of less than 10 million eggs per annum to over 85 million eggs now. Our point of lay business has also grown tremendously from less than 400,000 birds per annum to over 1 million birds per annum. Our turnover has grown from less than 6 billion to over 14 billion as of today. And I believe our feed milling production capacity also, like I mentioned, we established feed mill in Asaba. We expanded the one in Kano and also the one in Ogiri. Our feed milling capacity has grown from 60,000 tons of feed in prior to 2010 to over 150,000 tons as at present.
AMO is a fully automated poultry operation, and the company is one of the foremost poultry farms in Nigeria, producing high-quality day-old chicks. Breeding is carried out by a scientific method of artificial insemination. With such proficiency afforded by its expansion, this has made AMO Siebre a veritable cradle of broilers and suppliers to the entire country. In another major example of excellence in food production and processing, the Savannah Sugar Company, established in 1971, is more than worthy to be referred to as a resounding success. The company cultivates a total of 18,000 hectares in Adamawa State with an additional 100,000 hectares in 4 other states and employs approximately 20,000 made up of direct employees and farmer outgrowers.
Well, we are in a business of producing sugar, refined sugar from cane. The big issue here is you have to grow cane, and you know agricultural activities are not easy to come by. They are cumbersome, and you require a lot of capital. We got 2 billion naira from Central Bank as an agreed loan. We utilize this mainly for the growing of cane, for the purchase of equipments for land development, cane growing mainly.
As part of its projections, Savannah Sugar is to produce an astonishing 1 million tons of white sugar by 2015. As we have seen, the goal of national food security involves much more than the growing or husbandry of food. It extends to the storage and processing of produce and the many varied ways it can be transformed into medicine, material for industrial use, and stationery for education. In managing this value chain, the present administration succeeds where countless have labored in bringing to fruition the benefits of agriculture.
I think that it's a wise thing that government had to give special attention to agriculture.
The agriculture sector, as of today, employs nothing less than 40% of the population and contributing nothing less than 40% of the GDP. So that sector is very key. It needs to be sustained, it needs to be maintained because it employs the bulk of the people.
We thank the CBN very well on this initiative. And when they started this cards, we have only one rice mill in Nigeria. Today we have more than 20. And I'm sure more than half of them are enjoying tax.
What they have now is working. I don't think they need to change it. All they need to do is to intensify their monitoring. Because it is doing the monitoring that we interface with them and tell them if we're having any problem. And each time we identify any problem, they solve it immediately.
There are limitless possibilities in business and commerce for the enterprises, which seek to add value to the chain of food production, including the export of such processed foods. Through the constantly evolving strategies of credit financing, the CBN continues to make incredible strides in harnessing the potentials of the agriculture sector. These potentials are not simply figures on the pages of reports, but hard facts, which herald a new dawn in the nation's march to development and self-sufficiency. The possibilities highlighted in these few minutes are just the tip of the iceberg, and like a vast field of valuable produce, are spread all across Nigeria, waiting to be harvested.